Welcome, guys. What's going on, man? This is the reality of being your own boss, man. So for anybody who wants to know, what is it like being your own boss? What is it like having your own business? What is it like doing your own thing on the side, man? This is what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to try to make it, short and sweet. And we're going to get into it. Let's do it. So first things first, man, the reality of being your own boss is this. Look, see this? I'm going to work, man. The reality of it is that you are responsible for all revenue, all sales, everything that you generate. When slow seasons come, that's on you. When fast seasons comes, that's also on you. You know what I mean? You take 100% of the risk more times than not, and you take 100% of the losses. So you deal with the praise, but you also deal with the failures or whatever that comes with it. When things are moving slow, you got to go put on this, metaphorically, you got to go put on this yellow vest and you got to get to work, because business has up seasons, business has down seasons, just like life has up seasons and life has down seasons. And sometimes, people think about entrepreneurship and stuff like that as like the end all be all, because we think about the potential of what this thing can garner and create for us, which is true. There isn't a cap to it when you get in there, but it's a lot of things that you have to kind of learn and put together before you can get to that point where you can be a successful entrepreneur. The thing about being an entrepreneur is that you can kind of but you can kind of decide what success is for you. Sometimes being an entrepreneur, it might just be to replace your job. Sometimes it might be to get rich. Sometimes it might be to create, generational wealth or whatever it is for your family. But the thing that people don't understand is that when you are your own boss, you literally are your own boss. So that means that you have to be organized on your own. You have to be what they call a self-starter. You have to get up and go. And sometimes having a consistent paycheck can be a pro, because you know that, okay, business goes through up season, business goes through down season, but every 2 weeks, I'm going to get this check. And sometimes what people don't tell you is that, and I'm going to tell you the truth, sometimes entrepreneurs don't make that much money. Sometimes, most entrepreneurs, and you're talking about small businesses, probably don't make that much money. They might have enough to, I guess, remove their salary and stuff like that. But once you add in the time, the cost of services and goods, how much everything goes up, it really affects small business on a major scale. A lot of corporate companies, they don't tell you this either. They receive, when you have like rounds of financing and fundraising and stuff like that, you're kind of liquidating more positions in your company, which I can talk about in another video. But that's why they get all this money, the seed rounds and different things like that, because ultimately you're giving all percentages of your company for more money. You know what I mean? And that allows them to grow. But when you're a small business, you might not always be able to get the funding to, grow and expound and expand and different things like that. But that's another topic for another video. But the reality is of being an entrepreneur is that there are slow seasons and there are busy seasons. And you got to get to it by all means necessary. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be able to sustain yourself no matter what. The pro is that when there are good seasons, there are good seasons. But what people have to have is you have to have the forethought to think, okay, if there's ups, there's going to be downs. I need to prepare for my downs. And right now, even for a lot of entrepreneurs, some of them might have to go back to work. Some of them might have to have a job and then do business on the side, or have something else on the side, so that way they can sustain living for themselves. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Until you kind of have a system that works. And what I mean by a system that works, but a system that can consistently, like, okay, if I do A plus B, I'm always going to get C. Until you kind of get that, it's just like, until you get the rinse and repeat, it's kind of just like plugging and play. A lot of entrepreneurship is kind of really figuring out what works. Like, I think for me and my experience, the hardest thing has been to figure out what works and what is going to work on a consistent basis. That has probably been the hardest thing for me to figure out. It's not creating a product. It's not creating something that I think people will like. It's creating a process or a system where it's like, okay, for example, if I'm doing e-products, yeah, the e-product can be tough to make, It might take you some time to make, but it's like, okay, where are the customers at? How can I consistently make sales all this? What marketing channel do I need to use? What kind of videos do I need to use? What kind of content do I need to create? What platform should I use to be able to, what kind of resources do I need to be able to make that happen? So I think a lot of times people think that it's just a product. Like, hey man, like I got a good product, I can go, I can be a business owner. And there's so many other things that happen. It's like people who do music, right? And then they get into the music industry and it's like, oh man, like I didn't know the business behind the music. It's like, yeah, music is just the product. You have to understand the business behind a lot of things. And sometimes that is the most stressful part. For me, I kind of wish some days that I wasn't this entrepreneurial mindset person. Like, I would much rather some days go get a check and then just have that for 2 weeks and then save and stack or whatever, which is what I do. But it's just like, that's just how my mind works. I've always been wired that way since I was a kid. So I don't know how to just work for people all the time. I don't listen well. I mean, I'm not saying I don't listen well. I don't like doing what people tell me to do sometimes. And that's another thing. You think that, oh, I get freedom. I don't have people telling me what to do all the time, which is true. But you got to tell yourself what to do, which means you got to hold yourself accountable. If you already got bad habits and sloppy habits that you don't take care of in your personal life, your business will suffer. You cannot bullshit this. You know what I'm saying? You cannot. It's going to reflect in your work at every corner. You know what I mean? When you don't have great customer service, or you don't have good people skills, or you're not timely, you know what I mean? Or you don't do things with excellence, it's always going to show up because it's always going to fall back on you. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they want business because they want to make the money and stuff like that. And honestly, bro, you're the last one to get paid. You know what I mean? If you have people working for you, they get paid first. Some people don't see, return on their investment for months. You know what I mean? Maybe a year after their initial investment, because you got the cost of whatever the place is that you paying for, the cost of the products and stuff like that, the cost of the staff to help make the thing run. So a lot of times entrepreneurs, they don't even get paid until later down the line. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you're doing this, you got to do it for the long haul, and you got to do it because you really want to do it. It's not just about the money. You know what I mean? Because if you kind of don't do it for the right reasons, you won't get to the money. Or if you get to the money, you won't be able to sustain the money because you won't do it. That's why I kind of like, I do the videos and stuff now, because I realize, even though I am entrepreneurial spirited, I don't want to work forever. Because being an entrepreneur, man, I'm telling you, you doing more work than anything else. You know what I'm saying? People all want to lay back and get my toes in the You doing more work than anything else, because you have to create a system that works without you. You have to create a funnel that works without you. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And that takes a lot of time and sometimes experience. That's why people go through business idea, because you really ultimately, unless you have experience, unless you have parents who've been in business before, or friends or mentors who can kind of, streamline you and show you what you need to get rid of, a lot of it is just a learning process, and you learn on the go. To me, that's the only thing where you learn on the go. When you had a job, they train you. Don't nobody train you as an entrepreneur. You do the training, you do the self-training. Unless you have a mentor or somebody else that knows experiences is going to be your biggest trainer. You know what I'm saying? Just like with relationships, your best way to understand a relationship is by being in relationships. And relationships don't always mean like romantic. It could be, friendships. It could be, familial. You know what I mean? Whatever relationships you have, you only learn by doing. And so if you get out here into this entrepreneur, and I'm not trying to make it all scary, because the money can be there, but sometimes it's like, to me, it's a gap between when you start and when the money can actually show up. Some people get it sooner, some people get it later. If you have mentors, it might come sooner. If you have experience, it might come quicker than that. But it's still you still have to lay the foundation and the groundwork for those things. You know what I mean? Like I said, you got to be organized. You got to be accountable. If you know that you got bad habits right now in your life, that in your own personal life, you show up to work, you always late, you do everything. You know what I mean? You don't do your best when you do things. How do you think you're going to be able to run and sustain a business? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just, you know what I'm saying? It's not against people who do drugs and stuff like that, because there's a lot of rich people who be drug addicts. But if your bad habits are overtaking your good habits to a point where you can't function in a, you know what I'm saying, in a positive way, it's gonna affect what you do in business. You know, and that affects also the kind of business that you want to do. I think another thing as entrepreneurs is really figuring out what, if you decide you want to do entrepreneurship, figuring out what business is for you. I think right now with content and stuff like that, it's so beautiful because there's so many different ways for you to, you know what I'm saying, make money. You don't have to show your face. You have faceless channels. You can be personable. You don't have to be as personable. You know what I'm saying? If you choose not to, you can make a brand and be more behind the scenes. You can make videos, and that can be a form of your business. You don't have to have a product. You could be the product. It's so many different things. You can play games. You can, you know what I'm saying? It's so many different things that 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't a thing. You know, for me, growing up, I started thinking entrepreneur when I was like 12. But I realized early on, I don't have nobody to show me this. My family, they not entrepreneurs. They work well. You know what I mean? So I had to take those work habits, but nobody was an entrepreneur. I didn't have really any mentors to show me. I had to kind of figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. And I bumped my head a lot. And I was frustrated and angry a lot. And that's another thing. Like, if you're not willing to be frustrated, if you're not good with being frustrated, being angry, and being with your emotions, I don't know if it's for you either, because there's up seasons, there's down seasons, and your emotions is going to do a lot of this. You know what I'm saying? It's going to do a lot of that, because sometimes you don't know if you're coming and going, and sometimes you don't know if what you're doing is working until it works. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of like ins and outs of trying to do this entrepreneur thing, and sometimes it takes a long time. I think another thing is, you know, do you work well with people? If you're a type of person like, I don't want to work because I don't work well with people, you might just, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to be a solopreneur. Like, you just need to do something where it's just you, because you're going to work with people all the time. And sometimes you have to be better at working with people when you're leading people versus when you're working alongside people. At my job, I don't got to talk to people. I drive. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to drive to people because, I don't have to talk to people because I drive. Now, if I'm leading them, if I'm managing, I have to coach these people. I have to talk to these people. We don't have to be friends, but I have to have a certain level of camaraderie with them so that way I can get them to do the things that I need them to do. You have to have an understanding of people. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand how people's mind works, what people think, their triggers and stuff like that. You can't just, when stuff don't work, you go off the edge. You can't do none of that. You know what I mean? If you want to be successful, just like how you work for a job and you like, man, that's a bad manager, that's a bad this, that's a bad that. Because there's a lot of little things you gotta like be aware of in order to be successful. You know what I mean? And I know that I'm ranting, but I don't know, this was just kind of on my mind today, and I was like, you know, I want to talk about the reality of it. Like, I'm going to work right now because right now business not paying the bills. It's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, it supplement, it help. You know, I'm also, you know, I'm working, getting out of more, you know, I'm trying to get out of some more debt that I've accumulated from doing other projects and stuff like that, and I want to get out quicker. So that's another reason why I work. You know what I mean? But things are expensive for people. And like I said, when you're doing a small business, especially if you have a business that's product based, when other things go up, the cost of your product goes up. And a lot of times that cuts into your margins and your profits as a small business. And you can't just up the sales 20, 50, you know what I'm saying? You can't, it's hard to up it because whoever your clientele is, if stuff is more expensive for you, it's definitely more expensive for them. So it's kind of hard because then they might not be able to afford whatever your product is. So you might take a cut, or you might have to like pivot, which I've talked about in another video, the power of the pivot. Like, you might have to pivot your business thing completely to pretty much work with the customers and what they got going on. So this is the reality of entrepreneurship. Every day is not glamorous. Every day is not a home run. You know, I know they sell you that online, but that's also because they're trying to sell you these courses. And if you're still here, man, just drop a thumbs up or just drop an emoji just so I know that you're here. I appreciate you watching. But yeah, man, this is the reality of it, man. And when sometimes they put that stuff to you online because they want you to buy what they're selling you. You know what I mean? If I know a little bit more in business than you do, then I feel like I have the right to talk on business. And if I can sell you that, you're gonna buy the course, which makes me more money. And now I'm a successful entrepreneur. You know, does that make sense what I'm saying? If I got 1,000 of y'all to buy my course and get in my Patreon and all this other stuff, even if I don't really know for real what I'm talking about, I know more than you. Now I'm a successful entrepreneur. and it's because of you. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? So that to me is the reality. Yeah, man, that's the reality of it. So just think about the things that you want to do. I think really doing the research. And when I'm saying research, watch videos, consume content, consume it, but don't let it consume you. You know, watch other people. They say watch other people who do what you do. And at the end of the day, man, you gotta just try it, dude. You gotta just try it, man. You gotta just, because you really don't know if it's for you until you theoretically, oh, I can do this, I can do that. But once you try it, boom. And if you decide at any time, like, this ain't for me, pivot quickly. You know what I mean? Like, let me get to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you feel like, oh, no, I want to give it all I got, then that's different. But if anytime you get to the point, this ain't for me, drop it and go to something else. It's okay to stop and change course correction and change directions. You know what I'm saying? That saves you, to me, time and a headache stressing over something that you probably don't even need to do. You know, and just be mindful about it. If you're a person that pray about it, think about it, take your time and really feel like, okay, does this align with who I am? I think ultimately the best business is the one that aligns with you, because it'll be a lot easier for you to do it, and it'll be a lot easier for you to focus on. So those are my thoughts. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you. Just drop a thumbs up, you know, so I know. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Be great. Peace.